In Buckshot Roulette, the player character is a faceless individual who has been led into the backroom of what sounds to be a nightclub, a household of debauchery, excess, and moral decay. Upon moving into the room, the player is prompted to sign a form titled General Release of Liability, expressly stating the terms of participation for the game they are soon to play, with the reward for success in $10,000. After signing the form, the player is met with a figure who sits across from them at a table adorned with some sort of display showing their chosen name and dealer, with lightning bolts underneath and a shotgun on the table. The goal of this game is to outlast the dealer in a modified version of Russian roulette. Instead of the center being a revolver with a single bullet in one of the chambers that the wielder fires into their own head, there are blank shells and live shells that can be fired at either the player or the dealer. On the surface, this game seems like a simple spin on a well-known morbid game, but just below that surface lies an allegory for the parasitic nature of capitalism, exploitation, and the desecration of religion at the hands of capitalism. In this video, I will attempt to shine a light over the elements of design, gameplay, aesthetics, and hidden details within Buckshot Roulette that support these claims about the game. It is at the forefront of capitalist and neoliberal belief that the one who is the best at their job, by either being the most efficient or cunning, will see monetary success. In an office job, a worker ideally tries and works their way up through the ranks and eventually will develop the skills necessary to become a leader or executive who oversees a company and makes calculated risks to maximize the value of said company. Buckshot Roulette is the epitome of this concept, taken to the extreme. There are 3 sections of gameplay in the main campaign. The introductory phase, with a low number of shells dispensed into the shotgun, allowing players to understand shooting the enemy or themselves, and the advantage of blanks. Then comes the twist to the game, the introduction of items that both the player and the dealer can use, which significantly expands the game's depth, making the player have to decide whether the use of items would be ideal. The final phase is optimization and success, where death is permanent and hard resets the campaign at this point. It is the player's utmost goal to outplay the dealer instead of just relying on pure luck, which allows for a well-deserved win as well as the payout for success. Just as important as the gameplay loop and the goal is the atmospheric aspects of the game. The game begins in a run-down, decrepit bathroom with crusty mirrors and sinks. The player truly starts at rock bottom. In the space between the bathroom and the game room is some sort of industrial nightclub with loud music and purple lights, but the player is not allowed to dwell in this area or even look around. They are swiftly moved into the dark underbelly of an already seedy establishment, and the dealer, with knife-like teeth and beady eyes, sits across from you in a poorly lit room with brick walls and exposed draping wires leading the eye towards the dealer. This place is not for the faint of heart, and instills a deep fear of what is to come. The setting requires the player to stay alert because it feels as though anything could pop out from the shadows at any moment. This anxiety is where capitalism thrives. A group of scared individuals who need to survive by any means necessary is what capitalism thrives upon. It is in its exploitative and parasitic nature to assault the senses with loud music and the looming threat of death to create a super worker who will always stay on edge to appease their overseers. Much like capitalism, the game has no true ending. After winning the campaign, the player is expected to return, to put their money and their lives back at stake in the double or nothing mode, where the stakes become higher and higher, and the player has to manage the information of the items they have and the opponent has, as well as the number of shells in the chamber. The game becomes a resource simulator when stripped down like this. Much like a corporate job, it becomes the player's task to ascertain the risk of a situation and make predictions in order to put others down, in a literal sense. Otherwise, everything the player and worker have attained is lost. Buckshot Roulette is capitalism, not just because it is a game about taking risks to make money, but because it becomes addictive to win. It becomes addictive to put down the enemy or other workers trying to succeed at the same rat race that everyone else is in, and ultimately, the ending is always the same: death. Just as though there is no true end to Buckshot Roulette, the end is nowhere in sight for capitalism. As Mark Ficher stated in Capitalist Realism, it is easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. One of the sort of blink and you'll miss it moments in Buckshot Roulette happens in the second round of Phase 2 when the player and dealer pull items from the item box. The player pulls out 3 items, but only 2 of them are usable, and 1 of them is placed back into the box. This third item is another liability document, similar to the one signed in the beginning, with some key differences. For instance, there is a blood splatter across the top half of the contract. On the bottom half of the document, where the signature is, there's something rather shocking. The document is signed, God. While this does not mean that the dealer defeated the actual Abrahamic God in Buckshot Roulette, the symbolism shines through nonetheless. The dealer will kill and take, and will only be stopped when killed. But as the final frame before the suitcase is revealed shows, this is not truly the case. The dealer cannot be killed, because it is not actually a person or a thing, but rather a concept. The dealer is a force of temptation, which brings people into the darkness to play its game of capitalism, where the player has to succeed to keep their life. The dealer is stronger than the forces of religious devotion, and stronger than death. The dealer asks of you if you're prepared to die, or prepared to become a killer in the same utterance. Are you ready? The player must submit themselves to the force of capitalism, no matter what. It is a train with a track spanning as far as the eye can see, with no stops to speak of, because even in death, it remains. One question that could be on players' minds is, why does this matter? And to me, I find it is important to look at the underlying messages that games try and tell us, no matter how surface level they may seem, so that individuals can understand the deep-rooted nature of issues in the real world, such as the ails of capitalism from a short horror game about shooting someone. Because it is when people are able to decipher aspects of the real world in interactive fiction, where they make the decisions, that it becomes possible to decipher aspects of their actual life, in hopes that they are able to mitigate the exploitation they face regularly to create a happier person.